So we just started it. So I think the participants or the attendees are just
Coming
filing in right now.
Yeah, I see
So
them coming up.
welcome, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
I guess we'll just give people some time to sign in. And then I guess we can ask people where everybody is. Oh, see someone has raised their hand. We're going to open up the chat. So if you have any questions or comments, ring in over there. I think Hank has raised his hand.
I don't think I can see that on my end.
Oh, you can't? Oh, okay. I see him in the chat now. Hey, Hank.
Yeah. We got a couple people from Connecticut.
Nice. People are calling in from a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I guess, should I just start?
Should we wait
a little bit? Because I feel like people are still coming in.
Still coming in, yeah.
For anybody that has joined, I'm Chitra, founder at Brooklyn Deli, and I have Meghna and Malika here who are on my team. And thank you to Meghna for encouraging me to do this.
We're excited.
Maybe we can just get right into it at this point, you know?
Yeah, seems, yeah, we could probably start.
Okay, cool. Okay, so as I said,
She said, can you pin the video? Oh, Chitra, pin maybe both of yours.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because then it keeps going back and forth.
Oh, pin me?
Yeah, both of your screens.
Oh, this one? Like the one with the top down? Like that one?
Wait. Yeah. Meghna said yes.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. So, okay, so today I'm going to teach you guys how to make a Saag Paneer recipe hack using the Brooklyn Deli korma sauce. So this is what it looks like. And this is a recipe I make a lot. And it's a great way to kind of make Saag Paneer, but really quickly. So I guess the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to kind of like steam the spinach. So I have this pot right here, and I'm going to add, like, I think I said like a half cup, because basically you don't need a lot of water. And I'm just going to put a little bit of salt in there. And so we're just going to wait for this to kind of heat up. And usually I just kind of put a lid over it so that it gets going. And once it starts to heat up, I'm going to throw in the spinach. So also the other thing that I realized is that when you go to the grocery store, like the spinach containers have like, I think it's like 11 ounces. And this recipe calls for 16 ounces, but I've made it with 11 ounces if that's what I have. So, this recipe is super forgiving. So, don't sweat it if you have just 11 ounces. I also had a friend that made it with like 2 pounds of spinach. So, you could kind of do what you like there.
Chitra, you got a question in the chat. Someone said, what can you use if you can't eat dairy?
Okay, so if you don't eat dairy, so we're using paneer, but you can use tofu. So I've made saag tofu before. So that totally works as well. I also have a variation where, and this is still dairy, but you can also use feta instead of the paneer. And yeah, I've used halloumi as well. Halloumi is really good too.
Yes,
So right now,
as well.
oh, nice. Okay, so now I can see a little bit of bubbling happening. So now this is kind of like the way that my dad makes saag paneer, where he basically just kind of like steams the spinach in just in a tiny bit of water. And you can add more water if you feel like it's kind of evaporating. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start adding the spinach in. And you can also salt the spinach as you go, which I do too. So I'm just gonna, what you want to do is you just want to kind of get it to wilt down a bit and just keep adding the spinach as it continues to cook. It will decrease in size. And sometimes another way that I do this is that, you know, I just take like a saute pan and then I will put some oil down and then add the spinach to that and do it in layers or, you know, in just batches, and that works as well. So right now I'm just going to, you'll see that when you're doing this, the spinach at the bottom is going to be more wilty. You just want to kind of turn that over. And then I'm just going to continue to add more spinach. And then, you know, there's a lot of moisture in spinach in general, right? So when you put the lid on top, that moisture is also going to come out and continue to help cook the spinach as well.
Someone asked in the chat if you need to trim the stems.
No. Yeah, you can just kind of leave the stems because it's all going to be blended anyway. Oops. And I've seen people use like, oh, that just fell in there. Like I've seen people use an immersion blender also with this recipe that we posted on our blog, which also works if you don't want to bring out another blender. But I just prefer the way it comes out in a Vitamix or in a blender because it becomes more smooth. And that's a preference. I feel like in different households, some people may like their saag paneer with a little bit of more texture to the spinach. And so that's a totally fine way to do it. And also if you just don't want to, you know, dirty up a blender and have to clean it up. So we're going to continue on cooking, just checking it every once in a while. Great. And also, I guess, so while that's kind of like, just like softening up, I'll introduce you guys to some of the other, we are going to be using a few other spices for this recipe that also, I mean, it's like only like 2 or 3 spices. So at the end, when we're done with making the saag paneer, I feel like it's really nice to add a tempering of spices on top. So we're going to take, this is my tempering pot. You can also use just like a small pot or saute pan. And I'll add some ghee to it. You can have oil if you're vegan. And then we're going to add some cumin seeds. And I had some dried red chili. And then asafoetida or hing. And this is all, like the asafoetida is optional. If you don't have it, it's fine. And I guess the spinach is almost there now. And see, you don't really need a lot of water at all to make this happen. And like, I know that it seems like a lot of spinach, right? When you're doing it and you're like, I don't know if it's ever going to get, you know, wilty enough, but just have patience and as you can see that, I don't know if you can see, but there's like water also, like extra water from, or moisture from the spinach. And I'd say that's pretty much done. I can show you guys here so that if you don't see the other piece, this is kind of what it looks like right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add this to the blender, and I have my blender over here. Now I'm just going to add this to the blender. And now to that, I'm just going to add the korma sauce. This recipe is so easy. Okay, so now I'm just gonna like shake this up and put this in there. And what you can do is if you have a little bit of sauce left over, just like get a little bit of water in there and then shake it up and then add it to the blender. Okay, over here. Now I'll bring my blender over. And then how many people are kind of following along and doing the recipe or right now with me? Because let me know if you're at a part and you want me to kind of like talk through anything at this point. I'm just going to blend this, and I'm going to maybe put myself on, actually, okay. You're taking notes. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now it's blended. I'm just going to scrape down the sides. And now this, I mean, the spinach is pretty bright green, but if I know some, like, if like you feel like, oh, you cooked your spinach, you know, a little bit, like you're not feeling like it's as green as you'd like it, a way to make your spinach, make sure that it keeps its green is that you can basically shock the spinach. So like once you're kind of done, with it, you can just kind of put it into a bowl of ice water and just shock it, and then kind of slot it out. That's a way to kind of like ensure that your spinach stays super green. So now this is what it looks like. If people can see here, and then I'll show you in here. So the korma sauce basically has like onions, garlic, ginger, and like I think we put like almost 15 spices in it, like garam masala, and it also has cardamom, which I really like in saag paneer. So that's where that kind of comes in handy. Okay, so now we're going to fry up the paneer. So usually when I'm doing paneer, and this also goes for tofu too, is that I prefer using a nonstick pan because it's just like it sticks too much with other pans unless you use like a ton of oil. So for this, I'd say I'm going to use about like just coat your pan basically. So I have like probably just a tablespoon or so of oil here. And you know, some people don't like for instance, my dad, when he makes saag paneer, he doesn't fry his paneer. So paneer can be used as is. I just prefer it to kind of get a little bit of brownness, and I kind of like a little bit of like it kind of has like a little bit of a crust. And so that's what I like. The other thing about paneer is that it's kind of a cheese that it doesn't have like too much of like a you know, like a distinct type of flavor, but I do feel like when I fry it, some like a flavor comes out, and I especially if you salt it. So definitely salt your paneer well, and that goes the same for tofu if you're using tofu. And for the so if you're using feta, you use less feta, and you would be just chopping that, but you wouldn't fry the feta. You would add the feta later on. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay, cool. Great. Okay, so now my pan is getting warm. Okay, good. So you can kind of see that it's like sizzling a little bit. So I'm going to add the paneer. Again, like this recipe is very forgiving. So you may get a paneer, package that has 11 ounces instead of 14 that our recipe calls for. So, just don't worry about it and use whatever you got. Because I feel like this is one of those recipes that it's like you just want to pull it together pretty quickly during the weekday and use whatever you got. So now we are, I need to get my, okay. So now I'm going to salt this paneer. Okay. Now, so as I was saying, like before, that I sometimes to save dishes, like I'll use a saute pan and I'll put a little bit of oil. I'll put the spinach in, right? Wilt it, like blend it, and then I will like still use a non-stick pan to do the paneer, but I'm not using, like if you don't want to use like a stock pot or like a soup pan, you can just use a saute pan, because in the end, we're going to serve it in the saute pan or in the frying pan. So anyway, that's just like another, I'm always like trying to figure out like how to use less dishes, but this is the best I could do for this recipe. Has anybody on the call made saag paneer before?
We got one yes.
Yeah. Also, because I actually was working on writing a recipe for a food publication, and they asked for saag paneer recipe, so I worked up my whole saag paneer recipe and everything, but then that editor left, and so I have my saag paneer recipe. So maybe one day we can also do a class where I teach you how to make the saag paneer from scratch too, if anybody's interested. Have made pollock paneer. Oh, okay. That's a good question, actually, or like that leads me to what saag means and what pollock means. So pollock means spinach and saag means greens. So I'm using the word saag because I'm using spinach, but in this recipe, I've also used kale before, which works really well. You can also use mustard greens. So that's more kind of like when you would use saag if you're using a green that isn't spinach, but you can also use saag when you're saying you're using spinach in the recipe. So a little bit confusing, but pollock paneer and saag paneer, I mean, I feel like it's kind of very similar dish. So now I can see a little bit of brownness coming on here. You don't want it to get like, I don't like it to get too brown. Here we go. There. So I don't know if I can show people that can't see, but this is kind of what the browning looks like on the paneer. And I mean, basically at this point, I'm just going to pour the paneer or the saag onto the paneer, and that's kind of it. I mean, so here we go. So And also, if you don't have the korma sauce, I've also made this with my cashew butter masala sauce, which is also really good. And in that case, sometimes I add a little bit of cardamom to it. I just like that flavor with it. And so try and get as much out as I can. I'm just like thinking about my dad because he like will just put a little bit of, water into it and shake it up to try to get as much out. There we go. Okay. So now we have basically our saag paneer. So you can kind of just serve it like this, right? But if you want to kind of do a little bit of extra, we can do the frying of the spices or the tempering of spices on top. So, okay, so now I'm going to put this a little bit to the side. We're going to use my tempering pot. Okay, so the one thing about my tempering pot is that it doesn't rest on my stove very well. So I use my salt dish to let it kind of set in. So like, as I was saying, if you don't have a tempering pot, it's fine. You can find these tempering pots in in an Indian shop or even online now. And I'm just going to use some ghee here. Actually, I actually have a spoon that measures for 2 tablespoons, which kind of comes in handy sometimes. So now I'm going to put the ghee. And here as well, it's like, if you want more ghee, that's totally fine. And if you are vegan, you can use oil, or I feel like coconut oil would be good too. So there is that. Now you just want to have this melt a little bit. And so this is basically, this technique of tempering, it's called different things throughout India. It could be called chonk, or in South India, where my mom is from, it's called wagarne. But it's a technique that's used all over India that helps to infuse flavor into dishes, a lot of times with all different types of spices and sometimes herbs. So in this instance, we're going to be using cumin seeds. So and what I like to do is I put 1 seed in, and if it starts to sizzle, I know that I can put the rest in. And this is a very quick process to do this. So it's good to have your spices near you. And this is a little bit of asafoetida that I'm adding. And then I'm going to add a chili pepper. Now, I'm not going to break it because I'm going to serve it to my kids. And if you break it, the seeds come out and it'll be a little bit hotter. So now it looks like it's nice and toasty. And I'm going to pour this over the spinach. There we go. And what I do is I take a little bit of the sauce here to get out all of the ghee mixture. That's a tip my mom taught me. And you just put it right back, and it looks just very pretty to have that on top. Are there any questions on that technique or anything? So I actually taught my husband how to temper spices in oil and ghee, and then he applied that to how he flavors his popcorn. So actually there's a recipe in my cookbook for our popcorn that's called Ben's curry leaf popcorn. So he takes curry leaves and asafoetida and black mustard seeds and hing, and then adds that to his popcorn to flavor it. So you can use this tempering technique in a lot of different ways. Sometimes a recipe actually starts out with it. So you can, take a pot, put the oil or ghee in, the spices, and then like add rice to it, or you can add cooked dal to it. So it's a cool technique to kind of just like get to know, because you can apply it to a lot of different dishes too. And then I'm actually, so in North India, where my father's family is from, sometimes what we do is we serve saag with a roti called makki roti, which is a corn roti. So one thing that I really like to do is to have my saag paneer with a corn tortilla. So I kind of, and my kids like this too. It's basically just kind of like a saag paneer taco. And in the recipe on our blog, it's like the best way to kind of pair it is to have some saag paneer, either with rice or with naan, or you can do a corn tortilla and then add a little bit of achar. So you can have like the garlic achar, or the tomato, or the spicy mango, or the mango, and that kind of like just adds like that extra element that sets it off. So I'm just going to be warming up this little tortilla.
Got a couple questions too. Someone said,
Oh, yeah.
what did you add in the tempering?
Oh, okay, yeah. So what we did was we added cumin seeds, and so I just have the seeds, but if you don't have seeds, you can also use cumin powder. But I'd say that the cumin powder is going to kind of like cook faster. So you just want to kind of like be quick about putting it in and then pouring the spices on top of the saag paneer. And then the other spice we used was, we used whole red chili. And instead of red chili, if you don't have it, you can use like powder, like, cayenne powder, or paprika if you don't want it to be as hot. And then the other spice we used was asafoetida. And asafoetida is it's basically like the root of a fennel plant. It has a very pungent odor, and it's used in a lot of Indian cooking. There's a lot of kind of communities in India that don't eat garlic, and they may not eat onions. But asafoetida, what it does is when it's fried in oil, it imparts that same kind of flavor and aroma, very similar to kind of leeks fried in butter, I'd say. And so hing or asafoetida, you can find it in a compounded form, which you can just kind of, I use a Vitamix if I have that form, and then grind it down, or you can find it powdered. This is a powdered version from the company Burlap and Barrel, which doesn't have anything else in it except for, I think, some turmeric. But if you are gluten-free, just be careful, because some asafoetida is cut with wheat flour. But there are some varieties that you can find that are cut with rice flour. Or if you're just kind of paranoid about it, just like buy the compounded form and grind it yourself. And that'll be more potent too.
Okay,
So,
cool. Stuart also asked, I've seen a variety of textures for saag paneer. Is the creamier better versus just sort of stewed?
So I think that comes down to preference. I grew up, my father makes it like this, where it's really, really just like smooth. And so that's what I'm used to. But I've also eaten it in the restaurants too, and it's like kind of like more like roughly blended. So I think either way is fine. It's just like what you prefer, basically. And then my tortilla is ready. So basically what I'm going to do is just like put a little bit of saag paneer on the inside of it. Oops. And you could serve it just like this. And then I'm going to have some garlic achar with it. So it's not the prettiest plating, I know. But this is what a very simple taco would look like, where you could just like fold it up and just eat it up. And then sometimes I put a little bit of yogurt in it if you prefer that. Or you could also have like some cilantro too. But this is, basically a quick dinner at my house.
Maggie also
yeah.
said, I loved your curry mustard, but you don't sell it anymore. Do you have a recipe, and do I temper the spices for the mustard?
Oh gosh, that is a little bit of a tough that that's a very long recipe that takes um over a day to make. So but you don't temper spices for that one. I'll have to think about how I can figure out how I could share that recipe. I feel like it's a little bit of a complex recipe. But let me think on that. Of course. Thank you for coming. And oh yeah, I just wanted to add, if there aren't any other questions, let me know if there are any. Um, we're going to be, so if for anybody that's on the call right now that isn't, um, I guess, subscribe to our newsletter. I guess, Malika, you can put that into the chat. You can sign up, and there is where I'll announce more classes, and you just get a ton of recipes. Like Malika and I update our blog like every week, basically, with new recipes. And also we have about, I think we have 6 new products launching this year. So you'll be the first to kind of know when we have those launching. And I guess the other piece is we're going to be sending out a survey to everybody because this is our first class. I've been teaching cooking classes for 15 years, but I kind of gotten away from it a little bit after founding Brooklyn Deli. But I really love doing it, and I want to do more. So we'll send a survey out. Please fill it out and just like let us know what I could do better on the class, and what else that you'd like to learn too. Like I have my cookbook, Vibrant India, that I've been thinking about sharing some of those recipes. So if you have interest in that, let us know too. And thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, Megan said she would love to do more classes with easy weeknight recipes like this one.
Cool. And the other thing is that my son Ravi loves to make some recipes with me too. So we're thinking about doing some kid-friendly ones as well, if that's of interest to anybody. But thanks so much. Oh, this is so sweet. Thank you, everybody. I'm reading all your messages in the chat. And I hope you guys
But yeah,
all
people.
enjoy your Saag Paneer. Oh, cool. Kid-friendly recipes. Yes. Awesome.